Welcome to another deep dive. If you're a focused learner looking to truly understand how to make your teams perform at their absolute peak, well, you are in the exact right place for this explainer. Have you ever wondered why putting a group of highly intelligent people in a room doesn't always guarantee a brilliant outcome? Sometimes it's just a mess, right? Well, today we're going to scientifically diagnose group work. Okay, let's dive into this, because understanding the hidden mechanics of group dynamics is literally the ultimate superpower in any modern workplace. I want you to think back to your own professional experiences for just a second. You've probably been on a team where everything just clicked, you know? Ideas flowed, the work felt totally effortless, and the results were spectacular. But I can almost guarantee you've also been stuck in a group that felt like trying to run through quicksand. Deadlines were missed, endless meetings led absolutely nowhere, and resentment just bubbled under the surface. The stakes of group dynamics are incredibly high. They can make or break a project, a product, or even an entire company. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the group performance equation. Second, synergies and process gains. Third, the trap of process losses. And finally, number 4, overcoming social loafing. All right, starting off with section 1, the group performance equation. To really wrap our heads around group work, we have to stop viewing it as some mysterious, unpredictable art form. Instead, think of it as a mathematical balancing act. We have this core formula from our source material that says actual performance equals group potential plus process gains minus process losses. This is your ultimate anchor. It's the key to understanding how to maximize your own team's actual performance. You see, every group starts with a baseline potential based on the skills and knowledge of its members. But honestly, that potential is rarely what you actually get. Your final output is constantly being pushed up by process gains. The positive synergies of working together, and dragged right back down by process losses, the inefficiencies and friction of group interaction. Our goal? Maximize the gains, eliminate the losses. Moving right along to section 2, synergies and process gains. We're going to shift our focus entirely to the positive variables in our equation now, exploring how teams can actually reach and even exceed their highest potential. Synergy is a buzzword we hear all the time, right? But let's define it clearly. It's when the group output is inherently greater than the sum of the individual outputs taken together. Simply put, 1 plus 1 equals 3. This is the ultimate process gain. A truly amazing real-world example of this is the Apollo 13 engineering team. Faced with an impossible crisis in space, a group of engineers back on Earth had to figure out how to fit a square carbon dioxide scrubber into a round hole using only random spare parts. Literally, no single engineer could have solved it alone. But their combined synergy, it brought those astronauts home. Now, what's really interesting about this is a fascinating psychological phenomenon called social facilitation. It turns out that merely being around a team can fundamentally boost an individual's effort. Way back in the late 1800s, researchers noticed something quirky. Competitive cyclists rode significantly faster when they were racing against other people on a track compared to when they were just racing against the clock. Just the presence of others stimulates us. It makes us push harder and perform way better than we would in total isolation. So what exactly contributes to these process gains? There are 4 main drivers. First, a group simply has more information than any single individual. Second, groups offer more objective evaluation. They're naturally just better at catching errors and blind spots. Think of how open-source software like Linux is built. Millions of eyes catch bugs far faster than one isolated developer ever could. Third is member stimulation, sparking new ideas off each other. And fourth, members actively learn from observing the more skilled people in their group. But here's the catch. To unlock all of those gains, the group absolutely must be unified. Look at this contrast. A cohesive team exhibits coordinated behavior, mutual affection, and highly productive output. They resist disruptions and they stick together through thick and thin. A dysfunctional group, on the other hand, well, it's really just a collection of people serving their own individual interests. They're highly vulnerable to the slightest disruption and quickly fall apart under pressure, which honestly acts as a perfect bridge to the darker side of our performance equation. So, the crucial point is coming up here in section 3, the trap of process losses. You can have all the potential in the world, but if you don't manage the friction, your actual performance is going to plummet. We are now looking at the negative variables, the traps, the blockers, and as we speed through these, you might notice there's an absolute overload of ways things can go wrong. We can group these distinct psychological blockers into 2 main buckets, cognitive blockers and coordination blockers. Have you ever been in a meeting and held back a totally brilliant idea simply because you were afraid of what your boss or your peers might think? Yep, that is evaluation apprehension, and it's a massive cognitive blocker. Or maybe you've been on a chaotic Zoom call where everyone is talking at once, awkwardly interrupting each other, scrambling to find the mute button. That leads to divided airtime and information overload. These coordination blockers mean the total talk time gets fragmented and vital data is just completely lost in the noise. The sheer mechanics of communicating in a group create what the source calls the three blocks. First, attenuation blocking. You have a great idea, but you have to wait your turn to speak. And by the time it's your turn, you've completely forgotten it or just decided it's no longer relevant. Second, concentration blocking. Instead of listening or brainstorming, you're using all your brain power just trying to remember what you wanted to say. Third, attention blocking. You are so focused on constantly listening to others that you physically don't have the mental pause required to generate your own new ideas. It is an absolute traffic jam of the mind.
Okay, let's take a breath and move to section 4, overcoming social loafing.
Let's slow the pace back down for a moment and look at some of the most severe and, frankly, highly relatable causes of group process losses. Because beyond just cognitive traffic jams, we also have to deal with human motivation. This brings us to a fascinating historical anecdote regarding something called social loafing. Researchers analyzing a farm exercise discovered a simple, undeniable truth. The average amount of load carried by individuals in a group of workers actively decreased as the number of workers increased. A famous internet example of this is the classic rope pulling experiment, or tug of war. If you have one person pulling a rope, they give 100% effort. But if you have 8 people pulling that exact same rope, each individual subconsciously drops their effort level. They just sort of blend into the crowd. And this brilliantly illustrates a vital distinction we need to make as leaders. There is a huge difference between social loafing and withdrawal. Social loafing is generally a subconscious loss of motivation. People accidentally drop their effort because they feel hidden in the crowd. They just assume someone else is going to pick up the slack. Withdrawal, however, is an intentional stepping back. This happens when a member feels their contributions are being ignored or rejected by the group, making them feel completely futile or incompetent. They aren't just coasting, they are actively giving up. And sometimes a group actively decides to underperform. We really need to be warned about the immense danger of groups deliberately setting low standards. This happens when group norms are informally adopted to turn in lower output, often simply to rebel against management or just protect a comfortable status quo. When a group collectively decides, hey, let's not work too hard and make the rest of us look bad, they put a permanent, artificial cap on the group's potential. Creativity is just completely blocked. Which brings our narrative full circle, right back to the balancing act. Actual performance equals group potential plus process gains minus process losses. You now have the structured knowledge to identify the invisible forces acting on your team. You know how to foster social facilitation and cohesion to drive up those gains. And just as importantly, you know how to spot evaluation apprehension, cognitive blockers, and social loafing so you can minimize your losses and totally tip the scales in your favor. I want to leave you with a provocative question to reflect on as you head back into your own workplace. Look around at your next team meeting and ask yourself, are you truly maximizing your team's gains, or are you just subconsciously carrying their load while they coast? Group work doesn't have to be a disaster. With the right mechanics, it can be absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay focused, and I'll see you next time.